Hi, welcome back to Burning River Bushcraft. Today we're going to be finishing off the Flemish twist bowstring that we made in a previous video by tying a serving on it. So this is actually going to be completing part of a 3-step video. Step 1, we made this pyramid style longbow from a board. So this is a red oak board bow. Part 2, I went ahead and made a Flemish twist string for this. I made a couple of them up since I have a couple bow projects that needed strings for it. So while you're doing one, it's just as easy to make several of them up. So as I mentioned earlier, the Flemish twist bowstring is a fairly simple process to make. It's just like reverse wrap cordage. But tying the serving on requires a special tool. So this is a different bow. This is my Osage longbow. And you can see I've got this string all done up. This one's probably a season old, maybe 2 now, I've kind of lost track. But what the serving material does is it protects the B50 strands. So when you're clipping on either a plastic nock or a self nock off a primitive arrow, you're going to be wearing the serving and not the bowstring itself. So the serving actually just protects the bowstring. It's going to protect it from the nocks. It's going to protect it from your fingers, from the release. This is going to be the wear point instead of the loop itself. So this is about a $20 tool. My serving tool came already loaded with serving on it, and this is more than I'll probably ever use. So I don't do a lot of these, but I do enough of them where it's worth it to me to go ahead and purchase the tool, and allows me to be a little more self-sufficient in making my own archery gear. So using my Osage as a pattern, I've got a shelf on this bow, and that's right where the nocking point is. So I am about 3 to 4 fingers above and probably a fist and a thumb below. So this can gauge, again, this is something that you're going to make distinct for you. So you can have your own look. You can have it a little bit longer. You can have a little bit shorter. This is a little bit long in my opinion. I think it looks a little nicer, so that's the only reason I do it that way. So as soon as I come out here to shoot a video, a storm blows in, so I'm under the lean-to right now. So what I did is I just kind of took tension off the bowstring, and I was able to get a pencil through here. And then with the pencil in place, I can crack the bow a little bit, and then I can slide up and down till I get where I'm at. And right now, this is about where the arrow is going to rest. And got the serving through the bowstring. I'm going to pull the pencil out. And that's pretty well locked in for right now. Now at this point, once I get this serving tool tensioned up right, it's a pretty quick process. So I've got the first 5 or 6 wraps established. I've got my tail running down the bow, so the bottom limb's going to be on this side. And then these silver knobs, I can adjust the tension on the serving tool until it just spins on with the appropriate amount of tension for it. There we go. So I'm down about 1 inch, and right now I'm just going to take the tail. I'm going to make sure this is tight, and I'm going to lift the tail up out of the bundle. This is just how I do it. I'm sure there's 100 different ways to do it. This is how I was taught. So as you twist this down the bowstring, it just reels itself off. If this is too tight and too much tension, it's not going to spin right. It's going to actually twist the string. If it's too loose, then it just folds or falls down and kind of free spools. So this is the advantage. This is why it's worth it to me to spend the money on the tool, because the tool just makes a great serving with this. So you're just going to follow this down as far as you want to go with it. Like I said, I'm going to go probably about 4 inches above and maybe 6 inches below. So I'm going to have about a 10-inch serving, and that's probably too much, but that's what I've been doing. I like the looks of it, and it's really no big deal. If you were trying to do this commercially and making strings for money, I would probably shortcut this process, but I'm not. So this is about the right length serving I want. So we're going to go ahead and finish it off now. So I pulled maybe 2 feet or so off the serving tool, and I've got a free end here. And I'm going to zoom in and show you how we back wrap this. So here's our last point where the serving tool ended. So I'm just going to go ahead and pinch that. And I'm going to go ahead and create a loop. Now I'm going to be wrapping the opposite direction inside the loop. 1, 2, I'll do like 5 or 6. So I've got my loop. I have kept tension on this serving the entire time. And the tail from these inside wraps, I'm just going to go ahead and lay it along the bowstring right now. Now using this loop and keeping tension on it, I'm going to go ahead and just continue wrapping in the same direction. With the loop. So now as I wrap the top limb side, which is the serving side, I'm unwrapping this loop on the other end. And we're getting smaller. And we're on our last loop now. Now this tag end, I've got tension on this the whole time. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. And I'm really going to bear down on this. There we go. Now we're just going to trim our ends. And then we'll burn it in. So these bows are similar length, but even though I call this a generic string and it's a kind of a universal string, and the fact that I'm using a timber hitch, so it is adaptable. When I serve one of these things, I get the bow strung to brace height, so I'm about right where I want to be, and I position it that way. I have taken strings off and got them mixed up because they all look the same to me. I use the same colors. And you'll string a bow and the serving will just be in the wrong place. And as long as you've got a little bit longer serving like I use, you can just change your nock point and use it. It doesn't look quite as nice. But if I'm going to make this as a spare, say I've got several made up like I'm doing now, and since I've got all my material out, I'm going to go ahead and make a couple Flemish twists, and then I'll serve them up once the bows are finished. But I always get brace height and then serve it right on the bow like this. That way I know exactly where it is, and I know it's going to fit. I don't have to worry about cheating up or down depending on how the lay is with the serving. So basically the generic Flemish twists are kind of universal, but once I serve it, I generally serve it to the bow that I plan on keeping with that string. So now I've got this loop formed. I'm going to go inside the loop the opposite direction. I'm gonna go like 4, 5, 6, something like that. Now the tail end, I'm gonna lay down along the bow. Then I'm just gonna take this loop, continue wrapping up the bow. Okay, now that that loop is all the way down, I'm just going to pull it and lock it in. So as far as finishing these off, you're just going to have these little tag ends, tails, and they just melt right in. Now, because we made this string intentionally long and we used a timber hitch, you're going to have excess tail here. Now, don't string this thing up instantly and think, man, that's all I need, I'm going to cut it off. But once you shoot it and everything gets established and you kind of get a feel for it, that it seems like a happy spot, you're going to go ahead and can trim this off. You can trim this shorter. I'm comfortable with maybe 3 or 4 fingers. I would not want to go right down to the very end and cut this. Now this end does stay on the bow. So what I do with my bows is I leave the timber hitch on full time, and then I take the top limb, in my case, which is the fixed loop, and I slip that on and off when I string and unstring the bow. So now once you get all trimmed up and you got your length trimmed to about like you want it, we're going to go ahead and put a wax coating on this string. Now this is something that you're going to have to continually do over the life of the bow. You'll see the string will start to flare out a little bit, or you'll get little frays on it. And in that case, you know, this is bowstring wax, but it's just wax. I would use fix and wax or whatever the heck I happen to be carrying with me, and just give it a little liberal dose. And where I made my splice, I'm going to wax that up pretty heavy. And then that takes care of any little wild hairs that are popping off. Now, I am not a bowstring maker, so if you were to buy a bowstring, I'm sure it would be better than the one I'm making right now, but this is completely functional. I like the self-sufficient aspect of it, that I don't have to worry about losing a string and having to reorder one, or needing to measure and get a certain size string. So with the serving on, you'll hear that nice little click. So right now, this nock is held in place great. And if I did not have a serving on, you'll see that it's just barely held, and it really wouldn't be usable like that. So the only thing the 2 board bows are missing right now is going to be a nock point. And a little brass nock point like this crimps into place, and I'm completely out of them. So I got to reorder more. So what the nocking point does is I clip in below, and you can go up to the bottom of the nocking point. So now each time I put the arrow on the string, it's going to be in the exact same location. Now this is an adjustable point, so it depends on how the bow shoots. You might have to go up or down depending on how the arrow flight is to correct that. So if you enjoyed this video, click like, click subscribe, ring the bell to be notified of my next video. Till next time, this has been Jamie Boggs with Burning River Bushcraft. See you soon.